Value doesn't always mean that you're going to be increasing sales. It's what you drop to the bottom line. The less risky the business can be, the more value it is to someone who's looking to buy it, whether you're transferring that internally or you're selling it externally to a third party. The value has to be there. In a family business, sometimes there's a lot of decisions made on emotions, or there's emotions going on, and it helps when you can come back to some concrete, objective financial information to help resolve any issues. You being a business owner, you're secluded out there, whether it's a family or individual. You don't share a lot with a lot of other people. So if you're open to getting outside advice once in a while, I think it makes a big difference. There are a lot of buyers out there looking for businesses. That's still there. Just to find a quality business is the tough part.
Strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle in your family business. This is Fearless Family Business. Hey everyone, welcome to Fearless Family Business. I'm really excited about today's show because in the world of family business, one of the things that makes family businesses is the idea that we eventually pass those on to our succeeding generations, and then they can last as multi-generational businesses. In addition to that, we have a variety of options before us in terms of what we can do with those businesses, whether we keep it in the family, whether we transition it into an entirely new structure, whether we incorporate outside financing, or whether we sell it completely. And my guest today, Chris, is going to help us to understand a lot of that. And he's got a very unique story. And the reason I'm really glad to be interviewing Chris Goebel is because he has experience on both ends of it. He has experience as the person that worked in the family business for many years. He transitioned into that family business. He led that family business and ultimately helped it through its own succession and transition process. And now he runs Crossroads Advisors and Succession Plus US to help other companies do the same, help them transition through their own exit strategies. And so I want to welcome you, Chris, to the show, and I'm really glad you're here to have this conversation.
Thanks. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity.
Absolutely. So I want to start kind of where you're at because it's not often we talk to people that have that much legacy in their history as far as having a business that's multi-generations old. Not many survive that far. But now you're actually running a business that helps companies transition, which is a big part and a big concern for people in family businesses. So can you talk a little bit about what you're doing now, what the businesses you're in and how you're helping businesses?
So this is really a second career for me. So what I'm doing now is I help business owners to do two verticals, and I have two separate companies that accomplish that. The first vertical is I help them when they're ready to sell their business to work as a business broker in the M&A market to help them sell the business, and that's Crossroads Advisors. And then when we're trying to prepare that business 3, 5, 10 years out and add value to the business, I run it under another company I started Succession Plus US, and that's part of a larger network, an international network that was founded in Australia by Craig West, and he founded Succession Plus, and he brought it to the US, New Zealand, the UK, and he's looking to try to also get operations in Canada.
Oh wow, that's incredible. So you basically handle it. You can engage with businesses that really when they're even starting to think about that process on. And with Succession Plus, is it more along the lines of how do we create the most value in this business to set it up to sell? Or are you planning on like what that sale looks like? What are kind of the details of how that looks?
Well, the goal is to add value, and add value doesn't always mean that you're going to be increasing sales. It's what you drop to the bottom line, and then what the market tells you it's worth. So the less risky the business can be, the more value it is to someone who's looking to buy it, whether you're transferring that internally or you're selling it externally to a third party. The value has to be there. And the value has to be there because most of those business owners require 90% of the proceeds to fund their retirement. So they got to get that right.
Right. So that's really key for family businesses in particular too, that are putting really most of their entire nest egg into their family businesses and thinking that if they can sell it with a great exit, they can do just that, fund their retirement. And are you finding today with regard to the businesses that you're engaging with, are you finding that there is that more of the businesses that you're engaged with are prepared? Do they need better preparation? Are there things that they're lacking?
Well, I would say most of them are unprepared, which makes them really unsellable. There's statistics in the market that 80% of the businesses out there will never come to market because they're unsellable. So there's only 20% of the total small businesses out there that have that opportunity. And my goal is to try to change that dynamic by getting them to think about succession planning and add value to their business. So 3 to 5 years out or whatever it may be, they're not stuck behind the 8 ball and up to the whims of what somebody's going to pay them because it's a non-sellable business.
Yeah, so it's wise to engage with someone like yourself or with something like Succession Plus to make sure that you are preparing yourself to sell so that you're not on a fire sale kind of basis later down the line and just and that kind of thing. So can you maybe walk us through what that process looks like a little bit, like as far as how you're engaging with clients, how do you try to identify the areas of value that you can add there and what that looks like? So
when we engage a client, ideally the best time is to do it a minimum of 3 years out. And that's probably because if they go to sell it at any point in time, there's generally a 3-year look back. So the next thing we try to do is the reports that we do a business insight report. And the goal of that report is really several things. First of all, to provide some objective financial information about the business and how the business is run and operated. And we use a report that's about 60% financial related and 40% qualitative, where we sit down and interview the owner, understand the business, and we put those in a data in our program, and it populates a report and tells them where the value is at today, where it potentially could be at, and it identifies 21 areas in the business that they either are doing well in or not doing well in or need improvement. And then we work on those areas that they're not doing well in or need improvement to increase the value of the business with that. And it's important that we stress objective information, because I know in a family business, sometimes there's a lot of decisions made on emotions, or there's emotions going on. And it helps when you can come back to some concrete, objective financial information to help resolve any issues or get everybody on the same mindset on what the business should be doing.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's so true, and that's why I've always felt like especially when it comes to family business and all of those emotions that are involved, it makes it hard to get out of that box and really think more objectively on what's going to add value. And that's where the value of people like yourself or outside advisors come in to really dig deep and ask the right kinds of questions that maybe break up those sacred cows that might be kind of eating away at that value that could be building your business. I don't know. Have you found the same thing, that it's just helpful to have a third party, unbiased, or maybe just not necessarily unbiased, but unrelated party to really dig in?
I do. I mean, in our family business, we did have somebody that we spoke to in the area where I'm at in Ohio, Leon Danko. He was a professor at one of the universities, and he, at that time, that was in the late 70s, early 80s. And he was one of the few people around the country that did advising with small family businesses. So that does help, because it gives you a different perspective. And sometimes, as a family business owner, the emotions are sometimes passion driven, which is a good thing. But you got to harness them and direct them in the right way. And sometimes having a third party helps that.
Yeah. That's a good point too. That those emotions can be good. I mean, they express the passion for the business. But yeah, a lot of times it can be. Yeah. So that's a great point. I think it's a great segue too, because I'd love to learn a little bit more about your history as far as where you've come from in the family business world, because you were immersed in it. You grew up in it. You started by sweeping floors for your family's business. So can you share a little bit of history about the business that your family started, how it started, and how you got involved?
Sure. Well, first of all, I came from a big family. I have 8 other siblings, And my dad got into the transportation business, passenger transportation, which was probably a good thing to having so many kids with 7 boys and 2 girls. So he had a lot of free labor at times. But I sort of tell this story. My dad, now that we have a word called Uber, my dad was probably one of the original Ubers because he was a Cleveland police officer and he was stationed at the Cleveland Hopkins Airport. And after work, to make extra few dollars, he would take people home in a family station wagon that were stuck at the airport. Well, just gradually grew into a business, and then after 16 years on a police force, he dove into entrepreneurship and started the business and didn't look back. And throughout the life of the business, probably all my siblings have touched it at some point in time. In the end, I had 6 other siblings involved, 5 brothers and 1 sister that were in the business full time with that. And I remember, like you said, sweeping floors. I remember going and washing vehicles, and the drivers would buy us an ice cream cone, and that was because there was an ice cream stand next to one of the garages we operated. And that was our pay, was getting ice cream from the driver because he appreciated us for washing the vehicles and so forth. So there's a lot of little anecdotal stories that you have when you have your family business. I'm sure you can identify with that.
Oh yeah. We've all worked for free in our family businesses at some point.
So we were blessed to grow through a successful business, then got into the bus business with Lakefront Lines. And then in 2008, we made a decision to transition or exit the business, probably because there was so many family members involved that it was going to be continue to grow the business and make everybody understand their positions. Sometimes with family businesses, they think because they have the last name as the owner, they're automatically should be, the vice president and president, but doesn't mean that they have the aptitude or the ability to be there. And that's a tough decision that you have to make is in a family business, which people should be management and which people are workers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a hard thing too. I mean, I would imagine too, with eight siblings, yeah, that gets into an interesting dynamic because our business, we've had a 4th generation family business. So those shares diluted over time over the course of many years into many, many owners. And that does become a big challenge because you're saying that there's more people that might want to have more significant jobs, but there's still not that many available. So how did you all navigate that? Because you eventually ended up the president of that company and ultimately responsible for it.
I ended up president after we transitioned the business or exited the business. I stayed on for between the 2 different buyers that purchased our business. But how we handled it is we ended up having 2 companies, like I said, Lakefront Lines and Hopkins Airport Limousine Service, which was the second one. And they created about 4 or 5 management positions in each of those between those businesses. And then we had other ones that would take over an adjunct service that we started, and they would be the manager of that. But when we had family meetings, everybody was involved. Everybody's vote was the same. And, sure, there were times where the meetings were a little loud, but for the most part, we all stayed focused and realized what our goal was and, kept going forward with the business and building it.
That's great. And you built it to great successes. I know that it became a $40 million business. And then by the time you sold it, it was, you had did you have any kind of, as far as that succession planning, is there any kind of lessons learned from like what you would have done maybe differently or any nuggets in there too, that you think you did really well that people could learn from that you wish you would have known?
Well, as far as golden nuggets, I think from what I do now and learned now, I think having an advisory board would have been beneficial from that standpoint, where you're getting that outside objective viewpoint. Not that saying that they're going to direct the company, but having that alternate ability to tap into other experiences from other people or their wealth of knowledge sometimes could have saved us from say the College of Hard Knocks a little bit. With that, I also think too, having a plan as far as when people would come into the business and what their positions would be would also have been a beneficial thing to do for us. It's not saying it hurt us at all, but I think it would have been made the ship run a little smoother from that, defining everybody's role and position in place from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the idea of the advisory board, and I'm guessing that's different than the board of directors. It's more of, so you're speaking more of a board that is just advising you, that's outside, maybe outside entities that can give you advice on how to make that transition based on their experience and expertise.
Yeah, because I mean, sometimes, like any business owner, we're our own worst enemies, and if we can tap into other resources to make better decisions, then the business is going to benefit all the way around.
Yeah,
and it can be lonely being a business owner. You're sort of sometimes secluded out there, whether it's a family or individual. You don't share a lot with a lot of other people. So if you open to getting outside advice once in a while, I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that was one of the most challenging things that I realized coming into the president role of our company, was just how lonely it gets. So it's interesting you bring that up, because it's like you have all these familial relationships that are based on solely love, that aren't transactional, but then suddenly become transactional almost. How did you find that kind of coming into that role of president for a family business with 8 siblings, with your parents and that dynamic? Did you find that was it challenging? Did you struggle with it, or did you already have a good idea of where you're going?
I mean, there was just challenges. When I took over the business, it was basically became president. It was after we sold it, and the company that bought us. It was myself and one other brother that were running it. He left, and then Dad left a position open solely to me. With that, the challenges are then is, when you have a family, you do have some allies, or good, bad, or worse. But when you're out there where you don't have many family members at that same management level or helping you, it does get lonely, and that's where the challenging part comes from, because then you got to really make sure that you have the right people in there and trust them to do what they're supposed to do.
Right people, right seats. Yeah, it's always it's not the easiest thing, but it's so worthwhile to get the right people in the right seats. And ultimately, as I understand it, you took that after you sold it, you took that company public, or that company was taken public, and that was that the transition. So
we were first sold to a private equity firm, and then we were sold then to a public company out of the UK.
I see. Okay, so it was yeah. That's one of those things. It's like, when we think about, many people think about family business, or people even in the family business think that it's just something that has to always survive, and just last on as a family entity. But I've seen as I've talked with people that have gone into the generations, that's for some families that works, but for many others, it's just not a viable option, or there's different challenges, or there's different. So I think the benefit of what you're doing with regard to, Succession Plus and Crossroads Advisors is that you're presenting additional options to family businesses that are viable, that are also wins for that family business, which is a sale. So maybe can you share a little bit about some of the options that family businesses have, other than just continuing on in the succession path of passing it on from generation to generation?
Well, outside of like that big business continuity with the family, depending on the size of the business, there's minority buy-ins where some PE firms will buy a majority of the minority of the company, help grow it. That positions them to either buy the company outright at some point in time, or I know of situations where the owners bought the company fully back from the equity firm that was doing a minority buy-in. There's ESOPs. There's selling obviously to a competitor or to a third party altogether. A lot of it depends on what the owner wants to try to do and where they're at in their state of life from that standpoint. Obviously, if you're 65 plus or 60 or older, sometimes you're thinking differently. You said, I don't want to have all those issues and have my family have those issues. It's just easier to sell it. Versus maybe if you're in your 40s and you're having that, you still want to grow the business. You still have a longer runway. So you look at different options from that standpoint. And so it sort of depends on what state of life you're in, age-wise, I think, and how much family you have, on what some of the options you want to do. Every owner does want to take care of their extended family, which are all their employees that help them build the business. So that's important to any owner to make sure that however you transition the business or exit the business, that those people are taken care of.
Yeah. Do you have any big, so you obviously took some big lessons from the business that your family business, and obviously it's a very personal thing with regard to your family and your business, and you learned a lot. But as you took that into, Crossroads Advisors and started to help, other businesses out, have you found any common themes as far as some of the significant challenges, aside from, the what we talked about earlier, as far as, just a lack of value in the company, but any additional challenges that these businesses are facing that they should work to overcome now before they look at a sale or some kind of transition?
So generally, most of the business are selling because the owners want to retire. That's the biggest reason in the market. And with that being the biggest reason, one of the things that really play a factor in that is their management team or their key performance members, because generally the owner is, say, 65. His management team generally is not far behind that. So if someone's looking to come in and buy the business, they want to make sure that they have a management team that has enough runway for that new owner to take that business to the next level. And I see that happens a lot, where their management team is a couple of years behind the owner as far as retirement, but then that affects the value of the business.
Yeah. And that brings up kind of an interesting point of like, well, what are these, what are these potential buyers or private equity or third parties that are looking to buy maybe these family businesses? What are they looking for in terms of a quality of value company that they would want to acquire?
Well, there's different risk levers. We just spoke about the leadership. Another one is how well the business has been taken care of from the standpoint. Sometimes owners will get complacent and maybe they're not updating their machinery, for example. So they may be doing real well as far as the business financially, but someone's coming in, they want to take that to the next level. They want to make sure that the owner has done and updated the equipment, or they have a strategic plan in place on what the business can do the next 3 to 5 years with that. So those are another couple areas that are really important to someone who's looking at the business, that adds to the risk level of the business, whether it's low risk or high risk.
Yeah. And that's such an important point, because again, I think that a lot of maybe businesses a lot of family businesses that are looking at that might dismiss it outright to say, nobody would want to buy us, or we wouldn't want to, be purchased. But there's a lot of potential buyers out there that are looking for a variety of opportunities of adding value. And if at first, at least, you can look internally and say, how can I create value in here to be an attractive company to the right kind of buyer, to the buyer that we would want, then that's great. I know that we've been trapped in that past before of just like looking and saying, well, nobody would want to, we're a 100-year-old company. Nobody would want to look at us as a potential buyer. But, we do get, we get offers all the time. I think it's just a matter of like finding that right niche, adding the right kind of value, and then knowing that there's businesses out there, there's potential acquirers that want to create economies of scale in their own business. Is that kind of what you found?
Yes, I mean, that's true. One of the things I do get regularly, people contacting me is, hey, they're looking for a business. Have you, what do I have listed of if it's on the brokerage side of it, or what things I should look at? And I always try to meet with those individuals in person because it's important that they understand what they're looking to do. First of all, it's not for the faint of heart, and just educating them about what some of the businesses out there and how they look, and are you willing to accept those? But there are a lot of buyers out there looking for businesses. That's still there. Just to find a quality business is the tough part.
Yeah. Are you finding that with I guess the retirement of the baby boomers now, that kind of boom of retirement, is that leading to maybe more supply on that side, or are you seeing it differently, that they're more apt to pass it on?
Well, if we talk about supply, as far as the number of baby boomers businesses that have to transition, yeah, there's a lot of supply out there, but the quality is where it makes the difference. And there's not a lot of quality of businesses. That's why I think one reason why you'll see some of these companies being able to get higher multiples for their business if it's a quality business, because there aren't that many out there. And even though there's a lot of businesses that have to transition or sell over the next 10 years.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, that's why I think there's so much value in what you're doing with regard to combining that, basically leading your clients through that journey of 3 years before the sale. Here, let's create that value, and then building towards that sale, which is the part where Crossroads Advisors comes in. So, kind of maybe transitioning into that. What are you looking for as far as companies that you're trying to help with an M&A strategy from the Crossroads Advisors side?
So I look at this sales value or the sales revenue, and I'm usually between that 1.5 million up to 15 million, and I picked that particular space. First of all, there's a lot of companies out there in that space, but more importantly, those are the ones that really need to help. Those are the smaller businesses where they don't have a lot of the resources or haven't had the benefit of scaling their business up where they can afford to do and bring people in to help them through that process. And unfortunately, private equity does not usually come down that low. They do at times, but those are the businesses I try to focus on because I think they need the most amount of help. Yeah.
And who are you seeing that are buying those kinds of businesses between 1 and 15 million?
So, the businesses I've sold this year, 3 of them were sold to, 2 of them were sold to private equity. 1 was sold to another competitor in the market, and the other one was sold to someone who's putting I'll call it a master plan together. They're a magnesium foundry, and this is just one piece in his puzzle in order to produce parts for the military, because there's not a whole lot of magnesium foundries in the country, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's really not. And interestingly, when you say that, we have parts of our business that are highly involving magnesium, and we've obviously discovered the same thing. So as you're saying that, it's almost like you get creative with these kinds of ideas and think, well, but if we maybe sourced some of that or looked at how we could control that side of the market, that seems to be what a lot of different maybe companies that might be acquiring would be thinking. And I think the point of all of this is, and based on what I'm hearing from you, is that there are a lot of buyers out there for a variety of reasons. And if you're concerned, if you're a family business that's looking for an exit strategy, and you're concerned that there's not, I mean, they're out there, and you just have to maybe be open-minded to it. So, what kind of if there are companies that are 5 years out that are thinking, maybe they're having that thought. Maybe they're turning around their thoughts and thinking, maybe I don't have to pass this on. Maybe we should sell it. What should they be doing right now, 5 years out to prepare?
Well, the first thing I would say, get a valuation. 95% of the business owners out there have never had a valuation on their business. And what that does is it at least gives them a starting point of what the value of the business might be with that. The second thing I would look at then is if it is looking out at a 5-year period, to come up with some type of strategic growth plan, so that a buyer knows that you've been trying to build the business and scale it and been successful at it. And then, as probably more important now, as far as with the employment environment, lock down your key people and get them in some type of stock ownership plan or something like that, where you're going to retain them, so that someone who's looking to buy your business, they don't necessarily come in with a bench of people. They rely on the business to have that bench. So if you can do those things, that's a great start to start the process.
That's really helpful. I mean, there's a lot of value in just those, just that statement there, as far as you're going to take anything from this, do those things first. And then certainly, you want to engage with Chris or someone like Chris that can help you build in that value as well to get the maximum value that you can get out of your business over the course of those 3 years. But sounds like it's a start early process. If you're not starting now, it's too late.
Well, what's that adage? Those who fail to plan to fail.
Yes. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. Well, I'd love to know too, like, as someone who's came from a family business, you're building these new businesses that are also helping other businesses kind of find their exit. What's your, as far, this show's all about, family business in the terms of how we expand the love, legacy, and lifestyle that we can live and appreciate. So with regard to legacy, what's your vision of legacy, and what is the legacy you kind of want to leave on this world or your part of the world?
Well, there's obviously, personal legacies with family and your children and stuff that you want to leave. On the business side, after having a successful family business and a career with that, if I can help somebody along the way help achieve what we were able to achieve, I think that's a legacy that will live long for those individuals, not necessarily for me, but if I can help them receive that, that's going to be important to their family and their legacy. And I'm sure you've heard stories of families that break up, or they get a little money and they all go their own way. I mean, that's sort of life a little bit, but if we can help them understand their legacy potential and help them successfully transition to business, whether it's internally or externally, and let that legacy go on for them, that's a takeaway I could be proud of. That is a very big legacy, just to build value in this world, to leave it with more valuable than it was. That's an incredible legacy. And then as far as for your family, what do you have any words of wisdom with regard to legacy that you want to lead in that regard too? Well, growing up, my mom always said it's her job to get us to heaven. So now that I have kids and a couple grandkids, I said that's my job to help get them to heaven. So if I could have that legacy, that would be the best one. That's
an eternal legacy. That's great. I love it. And then that lifestyle, that legacy part is really why we do it for them. And then why do we do it? Why are you doing it for you? Like, what's the lifestyle that you want to live? Like, why are you building these businesses? And is there, lifestyle that you're looking to lead that is beneficial from this? So I would answer that by saying, a lot of times you come into a family business, sometimes right out of school, or you just brought up in it, and that's all you know. And, I was fortunate to be part of a nice family and have a good family business. But I always had that little echo inside, hey, could you have done this if you weren't in the family business? So when I had the opportunity to start my own business and help other business owners, that was something that I'm trying to do for personal legacy for me. I feel I've accomplished it. Do I have more do I want to keep accomplishing or working towards that goal? Yes. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad, and I appreciate you being like you just sharing that intention, because I know that, in speaking to a lot of family business owners, operators, and things like that, we tend to have that desire starting out, a lot of pride in the business, a lot of this, a desire to have that, well, I can do a lot better here than maybe I could do outside. And then we get mired up in that, and we end up doing more for others than we do for ourselves, and forgetting that, we're also part of the equation. So it's good to know. Yeah. So, and that's a part of like looking at a good sale is, what do you want to get from your business? And that's a lead into that lifestyle you want to live well into retirement. So, I'd love to know, like, how can people find you? Are you operating? I mean, I know you're in Ohio, but are you operating in a specific geography? Or helping people across the country?
On the business succession side of it, we can do anywhere with technology, doing a lot of it remotely. On the transaction side of it, I've been successful and had enough business right here in the Midwest to do that. And if some opportunity happened somewhere else, would I decline that? I would have to seriously look at it, because that goes into my life-work balance too, and my quality of life. So they can find us online at crossroadsadvisors.com or successionplusus.com, and we'd be more than happy to get on a phone call and answer any questions somebody might have, just to give them some information, because we can provide them with information. That's a starting point. And I know, just in observing, how my dad and some of my other family members, sometimes they're resistant to try to get information to make it better. They think they know everything. I'm not trying to say that in a negative way, but if I can help them with education about what it takes to sell your business or to transition your business, and add value to it, that's a starting point for them. And that's a starting point for those businesses to be the 20% that can successfully transition the business if they chose to, or exit the business.
Yeah, well, that's a valuable point in and of itself. And yeah, please do reach out to Chris and Crossroads Advisors, successionplusus.com to learn more about any of that. And I think the value in that too is just the fact that, it's out of love that our parents or the generation that preceded us or founded the business or ran the business before us wants to entrench in the legacy that they created, because it's out of love. It's out of a desire to keep that business sustainable. But things change over time, and we need to adapt to different type of things the world is going through, and be able to communicate that and create that additional value and almost unentrench that previous generation in some ways to make that happen. And I'll ask one final question, Chris, which is, do you have any maybe suggestions on how to start those conversations in a loving way, so that it doesn't feel like it's adversarial and it's more towards the benefit of the greater good?
Well, I think if it's a family and it's the father that you have to talk to, I think sometimes stepping back as far as being one of the children and sort of identify what's the best way that he likes to be approached, and approach him in a calm way, knowing that it may not go anywhere after the first time or second time, but he's in business. He's a business owner, or she's a business owner. They know what it takes that you have to listen and change. So sometimes you got to plant that seed and let it harvest, or for a couple of years, sometimes, or longer. So perseverance is a good thing with that. But you can't hit them head on. That's not the approach you want to use. You want to use a soft sell approach with that, and don't take it personal, because it's easy to do.
Yeah, it really, really is. But that's such wise advice, and a great place to tie a bow on this. I think there's a lot of value in that, Chris, and I'm really grateful for you sharing your wisdom from the trenches of working in a family business that your father built, that you built, and that had a successful transition, so that you could build these businesses, Crossroads Advisors and Succession Plus US. Go if you're out there listening and you are, you're having that curiosity about selling the family business. You're in between that, $1 to $15 million revenue range, and you want that, or you're a few years out from starting that process. Engage with Crossroads Advisors, engage with Succession Plus, and engage with Chris to start that process. And yeah, Chris, any final words or anything else you'd like to share?
Through this since I've been doing the advising side, I've read a lot of books, more than I did the previous 20 years probably after I got out of college. But there was a quote in one of them, and it says, "You run your business like you're going to own it forever, but ready to sell it tomorrow." And when you really dissect that, it gives you the idea that you can own it as long as you want, but if you run it efficiently, then you're in control of the business. And when you want to sell it, give it to your kids or whatever, you can do it on your terms.
Nice. Do it on your terms. I love that. That's a great pin in that. And was that Bo Burlingham's book that you recommended? Was that Finish Big? Did that come from?
Yeah, that was Finish Big. I'd recommend that book to any business owner, whether they're thinking about selling or not. It was just a great book. I wish I would have read it when we were going through this around 2008 versus 2012 when it came out. It would have probably helped me along the way in dealing with the transition.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you plugging that here because I meant to bring it up. I know you recommended it to me the first time we talked, and yeah, it's on my list to buy because I think that's something we all need to consider and think about. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here and being a guest on Fearless Family Business, and I wish you all the luck in the world with all that you're doing to help family businesses and businesses to transition and exit. If you're interested in that, if you're listening and you're interested in more, definitely go to crossroadsadvisors.com, go to successionplusus.com to learn more about preparing to exit and actually going through that process. And yeah, if you like this episode, share it with a friend, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And I hope to see you next time, or at least to have you see us next time. And I'll look forward to seeing you then. Thanks, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Fearless Family Business Show. If you're enjoying this show, please thumbs up this episode and subscribe wherever that subscribe button is. And you'll get more family business education and insights in your inbox. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, a colleague, a spouse, your mom, your dad, a second cousin, whomever you think might benefit from hearing this show. And if you're in a family business and you've got a great story to share, contact me because I would love to see if you'd be a great fit for this show. I'd love to interview you. Or if you're struggling in your family business to find your unique identity or voice, or you need an injection of new life into your family business, I'd also love to hear from you. I'd love to learn more about you, and I'd love to see if I can help. Simply email me at adam@fearlessfamilybusiness.com. and we'll get you connected to the right place. Together, we can elevate the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle we all experience in our family businesses. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.